Hey guys, welcome back to another video and welcome to my first video of 2025. Now with today's video, I thought I'd actually follow on from my last video of 2024, which was my big old acne Q&A. And in that video, we briefly touched on functional testing. So by the end of this video, you are going to know exactly which functional tests that I recommend that you consider to help you get to the root cause of your acne and help clear it for good. The role of functional testing is to get into those deeper levels to understand the why behind the what. When you get tests done, right? Testing, like certain testing is going to tell you what's going on, but it's not going to tell you why it's happening. And that is what definitely us on this more naturopathic functional side of things, that's what we want to get to the bottom of, because when you understand your why, that is when true healing can take place, because you really are addressing things at the root cause. And I always say, like, to my clients, you know, how can you fix something if you don't know what you're fixing? These tests I'm about to go through, these are not accessible through your general GP. And at the end of the video, I will talk about where you can get these tests and help you with that, but I just wanted to quickly just answer that. The main reason is because, again, echoing what I said, these tests are really from that root cause approach, and just honestly speaking, it's just a very different approach than what our conventional medical system has. Okay, so the first test that I 1000% recommend, this is honestly probably my favorite functional test, and that is a good old GI map. A GI map is a comprehensive stool analysis. So we are looking at things like your microbiome, so your bacteria balance. We're looking at things like parasites. There's sections on yeast and fungi, looking at your intestinal health markers, your digestive function, testing for things like H. pylori in the stomach. It's a really comprehensive gut test. And listen, before we go any further, because again, this is something that I hear a lot. Sometimes people throw back at me, but I don't have any gut symptoms. You know, I don't have any digestive symptoms. There's nothing going on there. So like, why should I get that test? Rookie error, okay? You do not need to have gut symptoms for there to be issues within the gut. So basically, you don't have to have gut symptoms to be actually having gut issues, okay? Now, when it comes to acne, there are so many possible reasons on how the gut can influence someone's skin. In fact, there is an axis called the gut-skin axis. So we're gonna break down all these reasons now, and I guarantee at the end of it, you're probably gonna be like, I need to go get a GI map. So the first thing we want to talk about is inflammation, because acne as a symptom essentially is visible inflammation. Now, the gut immediately comes in here because typically the gut can be such a huge hub for inflammation in the body, particularly hidden inflammation. Now, what can cause inflammation? There's a couple of things in the gut, but we're going to start off with, oh, that's my post coming through the door. We're going to start off with the microbiome. Just to touch on that word, that is essentially looking at the balance of your bacteria. And at a very basic understanding, you know, you have good bacteria and then you have essentially, let's just call it bad bacteria, but essentially bad bacteria is bacteria which in some, you know, low levels, it can be okay, but if it starts to overgrow beyond its means and take up too much room within your microbiome, it can become very opportunistic and pathogenic and problematic, basically, very symptomatic. And one of those things is inflammation. So when it comes to looking at your gut microbiome, we are assessing a couple of things. What is your good bacteria like? Is that in a good sturdy place? Or maybe you're lacking, because your good bacteria in your microbiome actually has anti-inflammatory qualities. You know, there's lots of really beneficial roles that our good bacteria has. So when it comes to acne, absolutely, lacking in the good bacteria can be a problem. But we're also then assessing the opposite. So we also want to see, is there bacteria that has started to sneak its way in that shouldn't be there, that has, like I said earlier, started to grow beyond its means? This is what we call dysbiosis, and it's basically, dysbiosis means an imbalance of the gut bacteria, and this can be very pro-inflammatory. So from an inflammation perspective, this is such a common hidden culprit of inflammation in the body, and absolutely this can affect acne progression. Now, the other thing as well, talking about these bacteria, is certain bacteria also do have a higher connection and affinity with our skin. And something to remember with the skin is that we also have a skin microbiome. So it's not just about our gut microbiome, we have other microbiomes in the body, and all of these microbiomes can connect with each other. So again, just reiterating, what's going on with the microbes in your gut absolutely can play a role into the microbes that are, playing out on the skin. And these together all can influence and promote the development of acne. Now, sticking on the topic of bacteria, another bacteria which the GI map does test for is Helicobacter pylori. Helicobacter pylori, also known as shortened down to H. pylori, is a bacterial infection that we get inside the stomach. And particularly if this bacteria starts to, again, grow beyond its means, it can be pretty nasty and pretty serious. So you really do want to know about it if you do have it, and definitely, get the support ASAP to get the numbers down. But the key thing I want to touch on here is that I see an incredibly high connection with Helicobacter pylori and the skin, particularly acne, but I also do see it in other skin conditions. For example, rosacea is another very common one that I see it in. I would say typically with my Helicobacter pylori positive clients who suffer with their skin, I see it a lot with like breakouts on the cheeks, and that can be quite far up here, but I've also seen it with clients who have lower as well, but anywhere on that cheek. And the hard thing as well with Helicobacter pylori is that everyone's symptoms can be very different. So some people do get a lot of symptoms with it, and they tick all the boxes, and you can kind of see immediately that Helicobacter pylori might be a possible issue. But you've also got people where they're not really symptomatic, they're what we call asymptomatic, and it's not until you test that you're like, oh, hang on a second, there's an overgrowth of Helicobacter pylori going on. And just to touch on some of the ways that Helicobacter pylori can affect someone's skin, number one is it's very inflammatory. So again, it comes back to that word inflammation, like without a shadow of a doubt, that is the main thing here. Helicobacter pylori, definitely a very pro-inflammatory bacteria. But also there can also be other things that link in with Helicobacter pylori, like you can see histamine issues in some people with Helicobacter pylori. You also see low stomach acid, because again, like when someone's got Helicobacter pylori, you don't just stop there and it's like, oh wow, right, we found the Helicobacter pylori, and we know what we need to get rid of. We also still need to be asking why, why is it there? So that's where we start thinking about things like their oral microbiome. We think about their stomach acid levels. Oral microbiome, just as like touching on this, is just as important to address than your gut microbiome, because your oral microbiome is actually where everything starts. You're swallowing saliva all day, every day. So we also want to make sure that we're addressing, the dental hygiene and doing the things to correct any bacteria imbalances that might be in that area. And then also, like I said, stomach acid, and low stomach acid is actually another very common connection with acne. Now, speaking of stomach acid, this actually brings me into that digestive area. And again, this is incredibly important to look at. Now, stomach acid is not directly, tested on the GI map. However, again, like I'm kind of explaining with Helicobacter pylori, when you have the GI map in front of you, when I'm interpreting it, I'm looking at the whole test also as a whole. Like, yes, you look at individual things, but you want to see how the test is looking and what the whole picture's looking like, because when you do that, there is another level of information that you can uncover. So basically, through good interpretation, that is how you can assess if potentially someone's stomach acid is struggling. However, on the flip side, the other digestive pillars, so things like your digestive enzyme release from the pancreas, and also maybe your bile flow and how you're digesting fats, these are things that are kind of indirectly tested on the GI map. So you've got your elastase, which is the pancreatic elastase, which helps us to produce our digestive enzymes, and you also have a marker called sterocrit, which is looking at the fat coming in through the stool. Take something like sterocrit. If someone is having a lot of fat coming in through their stools, and we're seeing a pattern of, okay, this person maybe isn't digesting or breaking down fats properly, and we're thinking maybe the bile flow, so bile is the substance that helps us do that, gets released from the gallbladder and through the liver. If that is struggling, you see, then we've also got to be thinking of that connection with the skin. So bile is a really important detoxification substance, basically, okay? It's a really big part of how we excrete waste. So if that's not flowing, we're thinking, okay, detoxification pathways are struggling. So again, think about the skin. The skin's a detox pathway. If that's struggling, the body might be pushing it out through another route. But also, we're also thinking about the other functions that bile has as well, like the role it has in helping to clear estrogen, for example. Or maybe we start questioning someone's liver function. And again, if you're not new to my channel, you know how much that I, love talking about the liver. I mean, it really comes into this whole detoxification drainage piece. And then the other thing I also want to mention is if you're not breaking down and digesting your fats properly, you won't be absorbing your fat-soluble vitamins properly. And what are your fat-soluble vitamins? Well, vitamin A, D, E, K, all of which play a role in skin health. Now, something else that the GI map does test for is candida, so yeast and fungi. However, the only thing I will just say on this is that candida and yeast is pretty hard to pick up. Okay, and in my opinion, I don't think the GI map and stool testing is the best way to do that. So I would just say on this point, if you feel like your acne is fungal related, because you can have fungal acne, if you feel like you are dealing with more fungal acne and you really want to know if you have candida, I personally would then consider an organic acid test, okay, so an oat test. I think that test is much better and a bit more sensitive at picking up yeast imbalances. Now, another section on the GI map though is you also have parasites. They are also tested, again, really helpful when it comes to acne, because absolutely parasites can trigger skin reactions in some people, including acne. So that's really nice to have that tested and see what's going on. And then the other side of the GI map is you have your intestinal health markers. So this is actually the section where your digestive markers will be, but some of the other markers in that section will be looking at, for example, localized inflammation. It will check for blood in your stool, all of that kind of stuff. But the ones that I would say are really interesting, particularly with acne, is there's a marker called beta-glucuronidase, which can relate with your estrobolome, so the estrogen pathway through the bowel. So that can be really interesting to get an understanding, particularly into someone's hormonal health, because this is the other reason why testing your gut can be so important, you know, first when you're trying to figure out your acne, is that many people when they're breaking out will be like, it's hormonal acne, hormones are the problem. Hormones are not root cause, okay? Hormones are messengers, right? So you need to, again, go deeper. And this is where the gut comes in, because our gut plays a really big role with our hormonal health and hormonal balance. And also remember, hormones aren't just sex hormones. And, you know, there's other hormones that can play into the skin, like thyroid hormones. 20% of the conversion of your thyroid hormones happens in your gut. 60% also happens in the liver, right? So supporting the liver and the gut, incredibly important for thyroid support. You've also got cortisol and also any neurological related hormones. And again, all of these have a connection and relationship with your gut. In fact, you know, we have our gut-brain axis, which is, my God, incredibly strong. I mean, I love throwing these facts out there just to kind of nail this home, but like, two facts I love is that, you know, when we are born and, you know, come from the embryo, the gut and the brain come from the same part of the embryo, right? So they're connected from the very, very beginning. And also there's more neurons in your intestines than there is in your spinal cord. So the connection between the brain and the gut is just undeniable. So the other consideration here on why to get a GI map if you're struggling with acne is honestly purely because the gut is just such a central hub in the body, and so many systems have a relationship with it and connect with it. So in my opinion, I just think it's a really smart starting place. Stop spending money on these supplements, trying to cross your fingers and guess, you know, and hope that something works. Use your money wisely and get some answers. And then when you buy supplements, you want to be targeting, you know, with supplements. You want a targeted approach. So having testing helps you make better decisions with the supplements you take. And by doing that, you're going to get better results. So I'll leave it there with the GI map. Honestly, I could keep on talking and sing its praises all day long, but I think that I've explained enough why it is important to consider that test if you're suffering with acne. Okay, so the next test that we're going to talk about is the HTMA test. So this stands for hair tissue mineral analysis. So as the name suggests, it is a hair sample and we're looking at your mineral status. Now, what's really lovely about this test is, number one, it's actually much more inexpensive. So if you are someone who is on a tight budget, but you really, really want to dive into some functional testing, a HTMA test can be a really lovely option, because this is around the £80 mark. Like £80, you could easily spend that on the wrong supplements, you know? And what I really love about the HTMA test is I like to kind of call this my direction pointer. It's one of those tests where it's not as detailed as the GI map, in the sense of like, the GI map very clearly tells you, like, you know, what is going on inside your gut. Whereas the HTMA tells you what the minerals are doing, but it's the interpretation off the back of looking at the mineral balance where you can then start to create an idea of what systems in the body are going to be, you know, affected by that. And you can start to kind of just tie puzzle pieces together really. So it's not as clear like on paper, but if you get a really good interpretation on it, it can be like opening Pandora's box. When I started using the HTMA test and actually focusing more on mineral balance, I saw definitely an uptick in results in clients. So that was enough for me to be like, right, loving this test. And now it's actually a staple in my service when I work with people. Like whenever I have new clients, HTMA is actually included. I include it for free actually, because to me it's so important to have some information to work with. And one thing I cannot stand, and I never want to be in the position of as a practitioner, is I hate a guessing game. Like again, I want to know what I'm working with, what needs to fix, and like again, let's go get those results. Minerals are incredibly important. They are the spark plugs of the body. So the way I explain it to clients is they keep all the wheels moving. Okay, like why can I not draw two circles? I'm like, but yeah, they keep all the wheels moving in the body. And the other thing to also say about minerals is that they are so important for our cells, and our cellular health is the foundations of us. When your cells are not performing properly, it is going to affect your hormones. It can affect your immune system. It can affect your absorption of nutrients, essentially, because it also can affect your absorption of things into your cells, right? It can affect, I mean, under hormones, it kind of is a category of all hormones, so even things like your thyroid, your metabolic function. It can affect your ability to detox. Like the list honestly goes on and on. So minerals are so important. They are vital to our health. So when they're out of balance, yeah, we can definitely see issues arise. Now, when it comes to acne and the HTMA, there are definitely some patterns that I see more commonly than others. So for example, I see definitely a lot around that cellular picture. So I see a lot of calcium dysregulation in acne clients. I see a lot of depletion as well. Like remember, like if minerals are the spark plugs of the body and they keep everything going, if you're depleted, like the organs and these functions of the body just can't perform optimally, and that's the domino effect, right? But also there's other things with minerals, like for example affecting our stress and our nervous system. Absolutely. So minerals like sodium, magnesium, you know, these can really play into our nervous system, even potassium as well. And there's such a big connection, you know, with our nervous system and our skin. There's certain minerals like zinc, you know, that play a role in skin health. Copper's a really interesting one as well. Particularly, I see this a lot when people have had past hormonal birth control use. There's like a buildup of copper, and copper can be really aggravating to the skin, and acne is definitely on that list as one of the skin concerns that it can cause. Heavy metals is another one on the HTMA. You look at someone's heavy metal load, and there's certain heavy metals that we absolutely can see a correlation with the skin, because these things can also further provoke inflammation. So again, it can be an inflammation pillar. And what's really interesting with the HTMA, and really what minerals is all about, is about the balance of minerals. So minerals are a bit like seesaws. That's kind of how I imagine them in my head, because basically when one mineral goes out of balance, it's going to negatively impact another set of minerals. So it's impossible just to have one mineral out of balance and everything else looks perfect. That is just never going to happen. But on that ratio box on the HTMA test, the different ratios connect with different functions. So for example, your calcium potassium ratio links with thyroid function. That's what I mean by when you have a good interpretation, you can see, okay, what systems in the body are struggling. I can't remember if I said this, probably did, but just to reiterate, when it comes to the whole hormone conversation, because the Dutch test is the hormone test that we use in functional medicine. It's a really lovely test. I do love it. It is very in-depth if you want to get a really good picture of your hormones. And listen, if you've got the budget and you are more than happy to spend out on the test because you just want that information, I love it, right? Because it's a really nice one to see, yeah, exactly what's going on hormonally. But if someone is on a budget, you know, and they haven't got the freedom just to be spending out on all these tests, in my opinion, it's not the test that I would purchase first. That is a test that I would consider maybe 6 months into the journey. So for me personally, I like to address the foundations first, and then the Dutch test comes much later if it's needed. Okay, so how do you access these tests? So the GI map is a test which you do need to get through a practitioner. So if you have a practitioner, then just mention it to them. If not, I will leave my email down below, and if you're really interested in getting a GI map done, just send me an email with the subject GI map, and I'll try my best to help you. Now, in terms of the HTMA, this one is much more accessible. I'm pretty sure you can access this like in the public. So in the UK, you can get HTMA tests from Mineral Check. That is the company that I use also with my clients. I am working on a acne group program, which is basically taking my one-to-one service. It's pretty much going to be exact same one-to-one service, but just putting it in a group setting so I can just help more people. And also I really want to create that community feel, because I think that's so lovely when you're working with other people who are going through the same thing. So basically I am creating a group program, but still with that one-to-one support. And I am going to actually base it around acne. So this will definitely include the HTMA for free. So when I do launch that, that will definitely be included, but there will be options if you do want to do further testing alongside, like the GI map. So if that is something you are interested in, I really should start a wait list. So maybe I'll try and sort that link out and I'll put that in the description box. But I'm just letting you know that that is definitely on the horizon. And of course, in that you would then have not only your testing, but then actually the support to know what to do. So if you are interested, when I say soon, like my plan is really, I want to get this done and ready to go for like early spring. So yeah, when I say soon, I mean soon. So if you are interested in that, then again, you can just send me an email and just share your interest, and I can just make sure I pop your name down, or like I said, I'll try and sort the link out for like a wait list and make sure that, yeah, the information is sent out to you when that is about to launch. Anyway, I would love to know, have you had any functional testing done so far along your acne journey? If you have, what have you had done? Let me know your experience so far. If you found this video helpful, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, because all of the engagement you guys give me on my videos, honestly, it helps my channel so much, and I really appreciate it. And in my next video, I'm actually going to be talking about the 5 most common mistakes that I see people make on their acne healing journey. So if you are interested in that video and you don't want to miss it, make sure you're subscribed, and also make sure you pop that little notification bell on so you don't miss it as well. Anyway, I hope you guys are well, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.